surface because of the holdup with the bond issue and the cash issue. And it's becoming a catch-22 for us. I'm in the middle of this. And we can't wait till January 31st or whatever to get this. I started this process in June 13th of this year to try and get Spectrum to put the service in. The first 42 days, their office screwed up. So I initiated another 42 days, and there was a person there that finally got it straight away where I had to pay my portion. I paid it. Another 42 days passed. Called them. What's going on? They keep saying, we did not get a permit. Well, and then I called Frank, and you said, well, they didn't pay for the permit. And they said, well, a couple days later, we sent a check, line number 1. And so I'm waiting some more days, and we still didn't get any satisfaction. This went on and on and on up until a few days ago. I finally got up the food chain in Spectrum somewhere in North Carolina, and they said, we only issue bonds, we don't issue checks or cash. Here again, we're in a catch-22. I need this done. We're coming into the time of the year that my wife can't go into the office all the time. It's snowstorms, or there's emergency. Client has to speak to her, so she does telehealth. My wife is licensed in 4 states.
Okay, excuse me just a minute. Have we received any money for any other projects? Some of them, but not all.
I think all of them we've received the application fee, but 2 of them we have not received the escrow fee.
So you say there is some you've received a fee for?
Yes, so on Lowland Drive and South Shore Drive are the 2 that we have not received the escrow fee. For County Line Road and Young Road and Koch Road?
Cook Road.
Cook Road, we've received the escrow fee as well.
From Spectrum.
No,
Yes.
from their subcontract.
Okay.
So that's half of the chain of command here is that different subcontractors are doing different installations. And like Lowland Road, I think we first got notified in that somewhere in May, and that really didn't get resolved until the end of June.
So the subs paying for the permits, or is Spectrum paying for it?
Spectrum pays the permitting fee. Some of the subcontractors are funding the escrow portion. We're already getting 2 portions of it. So we don't fund the escrow.
So on one hand, you don't do cash, on the other hand, you do.
No, if the subcontractor decides that they want to expedite by funding it, they can. We can do cash. The issue is if we process the cash on our corporate side, it has to be front-ended by the end user. So in a situation we've already co-paid, if we need $2,000, we have to then go back to you and say, here's $2,000, and once this project is done, we'll give you the money back. Trying to avoid making the user, because $2,000 is a lot for an user in front. So that's why we just like on the corporate side to say a bond, you guys have it, and then nobody has to pay extra money.
But yet the other ones that we're working with, they have. Is that what you're saying?
Why do you have individuals front the money?
It's the way our billing system works. We do by project. We do by project funding. So there's not like a pool of money outside. So the bond, there's a pot of money somewhere in the corporation that covers the bonds. There's pots of money that cover these individual lines of business. This project is fully funded from our side on an individual basis. So to get $2,000, we have to push it into that particular finance pool.
What do you suggest, Josh?
Well, hang on, thank you, by the way.
We need a reliable
I've got a
service.
question for you. I live on Blue Spring Lake as well.
Okay.
I have internet. I have Spectrum internet.
Mhm.
So it's not, 95% of the time it's very reliable.
I've done Viasat and it's terrible.
Okay.
It's a satellite.
But
I couldn't.
I understand, don't get me wrong,
When we
I
built-
certainly understand your situation in the need,
Mhm.
but, and maybe I'm missing something here, but there are other providers of internet out there.
My history with satellite has been terrible, and I lived in other states, and it's just terrible. I cannot put up with it, my wife can't put up with it, with her work. It's not so we can watch the nightly news,
No,
it's
of
for
course
her
not.
work.
Of course not. Oh, so you have satellite internet?
Yes,
I have no idea what that is, other than I know it's.
I need something, you know, that it's raining or it's too cloudy, it's not cloudy enough. You get all kinds of excuses from them people. So I'm trying to get these guys to put it in. I built on a lot that was vacant there, coming up on 2 years ago now.
Please don't take my question as not
No,
understand
no.
your situation. I just wanted to let you know that, but I
If
didn't
there was
realize you were
fiber
talking about
optic out
satellite.
there, I'd be hooking up.
Gotcha.
You just put it in past my house at 160. Go right by.
Well,
That shouldn't
my
even
wife
said
wanted to
that.
make sure everyone knows that
That's why
we
you
are
said come
both
work at your
veterans.
house for a while.
Appreciate your service.
I'm Air Force, she's Army. She outranks you.
So,
Don't we all?
Twice?
Hey, it's not on the agenda.
Josh,
So,
how do we rectify this for all?
So one of the issues that came up originally with doing a bond, first of all, is that the bond was only valid for 3, like the one that we had is here's an example of what we use in other communities. It was valid for 30 days. Well, no offense to anybody, it's not gonna be valid in 30 days, which means the bond is
Useless.
correct.
And I'm sorry, I didn't speak up, but we don't want a 30-day bond. We want a long standing. I get it issued for as long as I could, because quite frankly, it's kind of a pain in the butt to go through it all the time. So we don't need to have the money in perpetuity as long as we can.
So, no offense, but the record, I'm not sure, I didn't catch either one of your names.
Sorry, my name is Justin Hernandez. I'm the Director of Field Engineering Construction. Director of Construction.
Joe's the message.
Okay. So neither one of you were the gentleman that I talked to. And in that case, it was, here's what we could do instead of a check deposit. So taking that as like the offer, as the alternative at the time was not appetizing at all because it was 30 days, it was $2,000 and Laura doesn't work 14 hours a day trying to manage that from our perspective. So in the grand scheme of things, to me, 10,000 to cover it annually and to set it, you know, I'm gonna say comfortably in a calendar where it's not tax collection season or it's not the day that elections happen or whatever. So pick February 1st or, you know, some date out there
Okay, so,
where it would be renewed annually, where all of them, like whoever, Alliant, Alliant's not up here, Brightspeed, if we're gonna do it, here's the date, and if they need a rider to get from today to that date, then so be it. But at that point in time, the expiration is gonna be date certain, and we move forward from there.
okay, what date do you think would be the best?
I would defer to you.
Well, this year wouldn't be bad because we only had one election. Next year we could possibly have 4, so you have February, April, August, and November. Property tax time is December to, January, February.
March 1st,
That's
Yeah.
it's
right.
halfway in between.
Yeah,
Okay, let's use March 1st as a
Right
date.
before construction season, so.
Okay, let's use March 1st right now for a date. How do we get these guys going to get their permit? What are they gonna have to do right now so that this guy gets taken care of over here?
Well, how does, you talk about a $10,000 bond. Well, what's the process? How does it work? How many projects is it good for? If we issue the bond for 1 year, $10,000, whatever the figure is, does that give them carte blanche to do whatever projects they want without coming telling us what they're gonna do? How is it managed? What's the oversight, et cetera, et cetera?
The rest of the permitting would still be the same way that we're doing it right now. They submit a permit and a set of drawings and we review it and approve it. So it would sort of be up to us to manage the, let's say, 5 equivalent ongoing projects at one time and say, until one of them is sealed up and we know it's good.
I think that has all been done already. We're just waiting on the permit to come through so these guys can.
Right, what we're waiting on is a deposit on restoration, because if they come through and
I
anybody
understand
does what happened out on Tamarack and they leave it that way,
Yeah, no,
then somebody's gonna call us and say, well,
I get that.
cash.
I get that,
Right, yeah.
but you got $2,000, or does your subcontractor got 2,000? Pay it tonight, let's get this thing moving.
Again, if we can get a bond issue, but I think you need a bond issue tomorrow, if you guys approve it tonight. They usually go through very fast. Essentially, it's an automatic process for us.
Right.
So what's the oversight on it? I mean, who manages it, who makes sure they do what they say they're gonna do? You have a $10,000 bond, they have 5 projects. Is there a cap on restoration? So if they don't clean up and do what they're supposed to do after they're completed, is each one to max of 2,000, or can you pull all 10,000? If you pull all 10,000, what happens to the other 4?
Right. So that, you guys were nice enough to appoint me as the guy to manage the restoration thing. So that's kind of how that would happen, is, you know, we've got projects in queue. Laura's been tracking them on a spreadsheet, simply location and who the utility provider is. And at some point in time, we go through, usually, it's, hey, we're done, can we have our money back? And go look at it and see what was done, see what wasn't. From the other aspect, if we've got, let's say, one Spectra project in 2024, and we've got a $10,000 bond and they completely botch it, well, then we've got a $10,000 bond instead of $2,000.
And what happens to the remaining 4 projects?
Well, I can tell you that if I get to a point of having a problem with restoration, they're not going to get any new ones.
I'm saying $10,000 bond
Yep.
is issued. They have 5 projects.
Yeah.
Very first project, and all this is hypothetical. Very first project, something happens, they don't finish, and it takes us $10,000.
Yep.
So we take this $10,000 bond, but they still have 4 projects with no bond left.
They would have to reissue.
You just revoke, you can revoke the permit. You just, let them say this permit's no longer valid. You need to cease operations. Ideally, you guys never touch the permit. You know, we go back, I mean, I know there's a lot of subs and a lot of kind of subcontractors that with the push to get fibers are really just internet to everybody in the entire state. There are a lot of outsiders. Spectra's been here for a long time, and you know, if someone calls us and says restoration isn't done, we send someone out there and say what needs to be done. We send them back out again, we send them back out again. We just make it a the subcontractors do it. If the subcontractor goes under, we find someone else and we pay them and say, hey, these guys didn't do this, these guys. So ideally, we don't make it a dividend permit, so we're reissuing it, because we can just keep coming up with restoration.
Don't get me wrong, but I grew to absolutely have a gigantic distaste for directional bore acres about 16 years ago when they drove through one of my water mains in town. So I don't really screw around with, hey, oh, okay, let's go do another project then. It's stay on it until it's done. But obviously I'm not going to sit here forever either, so.
Does a surety bond, whether it's a year or a few months, whatever, does it have specific clauses or whatever attached to it on performance, et cetera, et cetera?
And that's one of the pieces that we would have to find the bond, is everybody's going to have their own bonding company and the terms and everything else that we would have to work on to find.
So this would be a Spectrum surety bond with their terms on it versus us. I mean, how's that work?
Well, like the draft that they sent us was, here's the terms of it. And part of the conversation tonight is what would be the process or the acceptability of going from cash to a bond.
So every company, not just Spectrum, every company, Lightspeed, whoever, would present their own terms. So almost everyone would have slightly different terms to them.
He's saying we want to have our own bond, right?
For
our own terms.
So there's generic, I'm going to say boilerplate, not generic. There's boilerplate language in bonds. Covers X amount, this community, this type of work, blah, 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 blah. If there is something specific you absolutely can't live without, that would become a condition of, obviously these gentlemen are in the room tonight. Brightspeed shows up tomorrow and we say, yeah, we can do a bond, but it has to include X, Y, and Z, 1, 2, 3, move forward.
Do we have anybody review the terms and conditions? Do we have Al review the terms and conditions?
We have it
Obviously in
because
the past, because we haven't done it.
exactly.
Do we want to do something like that? To make sure there isn't, forgive me for this, I'm not, you guys are here, so you're sitting through the questions, okay? They're not,
Here to answer questions.
they're not specific, but a poison pill or something in there that we don't see or don't notice, and all of a sudden, what we thought the bond was doing really doesn't.
I mean, that realistically, our right-of-way permit or application fee is supposed to cover our cost, and it's $200. And generally speaking, I think to set the generic language up company by company one time and have, I mean, once Spectrum knows this is our bond, okay, then it's got to get renewed March 1st or whatever it is in 2024. It's a cross comparison, yes it is, or no it isn't the same thing, but to get off the ground, I think our $200 that we take in for the permit, a portion of that could be designated as legal review costs. You know what I'm saying?
And don't get me wrong, I know as soon as you involve an attorney, then you have to, another company will have to have your lawyers review it, and it goes back and forth.
I would prefer not to have to read my.
And it might take as long as the way things have gone right now, so I understand that, so I'm just asking questions.
I didn't think to bring a copy just because the last time I did review one of our bonds, it was pretty generic and basic. I know you saw one recently, I don't think it was, did you see anything in there? They're very basic. It's more or less a template that we use across the country.
It names them, it names us, there's a start and expiration and the value and how you go about not revoking it, having cashing in on it. So,
What can you do for me? And there's another person, I believe,
Well,
too, that is waiting.
We
Same
want
situation.
to take care of everybody, but we also are looking at, because
I understand that.
it's not a custom thing, right? So we want to take care of your issue, absolutely, but what we're talking about is what do we do as a town moving forward, so.
so like, no different than your case, really. My tech was a subcontractor. I don't know if they're the sub for your project or not. They provided the deposit, and then we issued the permit. I mean, it was as simple and as straightforward as that.
Mhm.
Do you take bonds, or, and we said no. And they said, okay, we'll get in touch with our sub. And 2.5 weeks later, we had a check from them. So, I don't want to say you're the anomaly of this, but obviously we're working through the process to help smooth it out, not just for you tonight, but
Right.
for anybody else, because
I understand
to
that.
the point of trying to get internet to everybody, I've talked with 2 or 3 other town supervisors and county supervisors who have concerns about the fact that townships are not well equipped to deal with this. Number one, because for 100 years, we energy's been around. CenturyLink's been around for eons and everything else, so their infrastructure essentially has been placed and active forever. This expansion is testing everybody's limits from the fact that we've got 4 office hours a week, and what do we do to make sure that the rest of the folks in the room don't end up on the hook for what Spectrum does or doesn't do?
Since I started this, I've spent $800 on lousy internet service. I don't even have TV, just internet. If I wait until February, March, or April, I might as well pay the $2,000 and have these guys go and put it in.
But I hope you all also understand that up until 36 hours ago, we hadn't heard from you. I hadn't. So,
Before.
A week or so ago.
so it's 5 months into the issue. Like, we're trying here, right?
So what does Spectrum say about issues like this and how this whole position has impacted individuals.
Yeah, well, remember, it's coming out later. I mean, I'm in charge of the state. And there's Palmyra, which is new, and then there's one other town that is kind of switched to escrows. I mean, it's also an issue up there because it drives cost to end users. The vast majority of municipalities require nothing, or they just take loans. So it's just kind of an outlier. You don't really do with a lot. And
That wasn't really my question.
right, but what we do is we come to these town meetings. We try to get a hold of Laura. Usually we just call the towns and say, hey, what can we do? What are your concerns? Restoration is the biggest concern, and then engineering costs. Sometimes don't really know what their engineering costs are, and that's typically why they're asking for an escrow. So we just work with them individually to see what we can do to get things moving. And sometimes we've had situations where we get where we're working through some legal back end, where we just get a preliminary permit approval to work these couple projects while we flush through the system so we can immediately start on the process. That's up to you guys, and whatever you're willing to do. It's your right away. Once you approve it, you can start. My story.
We could leave it at that, but I still don't think you answered your question about now that you're seeing the real world impact to our residents, and how do you,
I see the rural feedback all the time. I spend a lot of time my day talking to people across the entire state. Fortunately, this is a little easier because there is a solution. There's an end solution to this. I talk to a lot of people across the state that it's not feasible to bring service to them. And I have to listen to them, be very upset. And they're out, they can't get service. So I hear it. That's why I'm here. That's why I showed up in person. That's why we're here after 8 is we're trying to get this moving because I really do want to get as many people service as possible. And ideally as cheap as possible.
who's your sub?
I have a bunch, probably J and R out of this area.
Is that who it is?
I don't remember.
Yours? It was. So
It was
paid
it was 12 years ago.
Oh, so they obviously don't pay escrow.
So how do you want to move forward with this?
I would be comfortable myself switching to an annual bond for companies, for utility companies. If it's annual, that way we don't have to manage.
And we'll use the annual date of March 1st.
So if we would, and this has to be a motion and a vote by the board, right? So if, just hypothetical, if we did not vote for going to the bond versus our prior vote to keep it escrow, how would Spectrum move forward, and how would our individual constituents?
I would likely have to just try to reach out to the individual customers to see if there's something to do where they're holding that escrow in the meantime while we do the bills.
So, I'm sorry. What exactly does it mean? You go to the individual consumer?
Yeah, like
so you have to ask them to put up the money?
Yeah, well, so I have one customer right now that it's free to them, but they're right under the line. So if I need $2,000 on a project, I have to go with them and say, I need $1,800 more from you. After the bill is done, let us know, and we'll refund you for days of use once we get it back to the town. That's what I have to do. I'm really trying to do that.
I'm sorry, I guess I don't understand that. I understand what you said, but...
It's their business model. It is what it is.
Yeah.
You can disagree with how Spectrum runs it, but that's all they do.
And I'll go on record saying I disagree. Taking it out on our... We can...
So I would make a motion that we allow the use of bonds if they're on an annual basis in an amount not less than $10,000 with a renewal of March 1st each year.
It's been a motion made to go to the surety bond of $10,000 with an annual time from March 1st through the end of February every year. Is there a second? I'll second it. There's been a motion made and a second. Is there any other further discussion? I have one more piece on this. So how do we get these guys going as soon as possible and make sure that the bond is up to what?
They send me, well, I don't even need, as long as it's gonna be in the same form and function as what the last one, or if you wanna send me another one, you send it to Al, we have him review it. It should take him less than a half an hour, and then if he said the language is fine, we move forward.
It would take 3 days to locate to clear.
Yeah.
So if I know that we're moving forward, then, good faith, we'll get the locates called in tomorrow, they'll clear by midweek next week, and then we can start, hopefully we'll have it moving there.
Any further discussion? Is a roll call vote?
No.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Aye or nay?
Okay, it's carried. Number 7, discussion and possible action on 2023-002 ordinance creating a 5-person board.
Yeah, I asked for this to be on the agenda. Last meeting or two ago, we had voted to pursue the 5-person board, and we just had discussions that evening on it. So I've had more time to think about it and walk through it. I would like to have that vote brought up for another vote meeting.
Any comments, Josh?
My mind went straight procedural, sorry.
I did too. I think the only thing you can do is a rescension, rescinding it.
Well, it depends what the vote is, right?
Well, I don't think you can vote on a ordinance you've already put in place. I think you have to vote on rescinding the
Did we
ordinance.
write an ordinance? That's-
Yeah,
Okay.
You got something up here?
no, I didn't include that one because I wasn't sure where we were going with it. I mean, I can pull it up. But because it's already in place, I don't think you can vote on it again. You would have to vote on rescinding.
Rescinding the ordinance?
Yeah.
Well,
It would essentially turn into ordinance 2023-004, which would rescind ordinance 2023-002.
Or whatever the number it would be.
okay, aside from just automatically going to a vote, what's your thinking behind this? Why have you had second thoughts on that?
Just added thought to the points Josh made at the meeting, etc.
Okay. You want to restate your motion?
I don't make a motion.
Okay.
Brought to further discussion.
I-
What am I making a motion on, to rescind it? Because I don't know that
You've got concerns. Okay, I understand that. But I'm just wondering, what some of the couple of main concerns that you have.
finding qualified candidates. And some of the other ones I'll keep to myself. So do I make a motion to have a vote on rescinding it come up? How's it work?
Well, that's the way we would have to do it, correct?
Right.
Robert's rules, I'm a little fuzzy at the moment, because we would definitely have to have an ordinance drafted that would rescind that ordinance. I don't know if the motion to reconsider old business, because it was put in as an ordinance, I think that's solely what it is. If we were to make a motion on,
Well, how would we rescind the truck ordinance we just put in?
same thing.
How would we, if we got back together and we saw it wasn't working, whatever, how would we go about reviewing it and potentially rescinding it? How would we do it for that?
say, I mean, essentially where we're at right now. No different, think about what we did with Little Prairie Road.
I was just gonna say that one.
Right, so the speed limit had gotten lowered to 30 miles an hour. And we had noticed on the agenda initially as a, should we consider undoing the ordinance? And the general consensus was, yes, we should consider undoing the ordinance. So the next meeting came back as a drafted ordinance to rescind the speed limit. Rescind the ordinance that set the speed limit. So that's essentially the same process that we would have to go through is one way, shape, or form. I mean, we don't really have a rules program here as far as how things get on the agenda. So, you know, it's not like you need 2 board members to say, yes, we want it on the agenda, and then it goes on next month's agenda. I think realistically, what it would be instructing the clerk to draft an ordinance to rescind the ordinance, I think would be the starting point at that, and we could bring the draft back.
Which we may not have to do if the vote isn't to rescind it, right?
Well,
We
so is
can't
it
even do that, she's going,
That's what I'm asking,
Yeah.
how it has to happen.
she would have to make up an ordinance now. We would have to vote, make a motion for her to make up an ordinance to rescind whatever the number is, the 002 ordinance.
Can you make a motion to have a vote to see if it
No.
rescind?
This is, no, I don't think so. Yeah, it's gotta be on the next agenda. So you can make a motion to create an ordinance to rescind that for 2023-002, but it'll have to be on the next board.
All right, to make the motion for discussion and possible action on rescinding the ordinance, whatever the number it is, to 002, I guess, to go to a 5-person.
Okay, a motion's been made to create an ordinance rescinding 2023-002 ordinance creating a 5-person board and take action on it at the next meeting. Is there a second?
second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Geez, we're getting into new business stuff. New business, discussion and possible.
Hang on one second. Can I say something?
Go ahead.
Guys, you're more than welcome to stay for the whole thing, but if you wanted to get out of here, you're not, you know.
No, I do appreciate it.
I'm
Out of town, so-
I am not kicking you out, but I know you're from out of town, and just want to let you know, you don't necessarily have to sit for the rest of it if you wanted to take
Give
it.
it another 10 days,
You're welcome to stay.
Or less than that, right?
I'm sure his dog will.
You'll see something. With what we did here tonight, you should see something.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you to gentlemen.
So late, sure.
New business, discussion and possible action on securing the voting machine. I'm gonna take the lead on this. After going to school Monday, I'm talking to 4 attorneys up there at the WTA. It is very much advisable to have a secure, locked up voting machine. What it has to do with all the problems that we've seen in the last few years, is chain of custody. Now, this doesn't have to be some fancy safe or anything. In my opinion, it could be a box with a door with 3/4-inch plywood with a big padlock on it, and it's good enough. It's got to be big enough to house the machine, and what else?
The floor machine, the tabletop machine, all of the voter rolls, and the ballots that come in before an election.
How big of a, lack of a better word, safe would be?
Well, it's not safe.
I said lack of a better word.
Probably about half the size of this table.
Well, you see the voting machine, the floor voting machine, and the tabletop was one like a large laptop, I would say. and then the voter rolls, we probably have 3 or 4 large binders of the voter rolls, and then the ballots, I don't know how many ballots we get it for every election.
And the storage room is locked, but they recommend an individual locked box within the locked storage room.
Well, the lawyers that I talked to at the Wisconsin Election Commission said where it is now is fine, but if anyone beyond the clerk would have to have access to that room while the clerk is not here, it has to be in a stored cabinet.
Yeah, the chain of custody thing is extremely important. But the other part about that is, folks, this building is so small, we're limited on room and storage area. You go back here, where she has that, there's old record books and stuff like that back there. But we need to be able to get to those without a problem. So that needs to be built in there, secured, so that we have access to that. You can see how small this is in the office, we need to do something with that, straighten it up, etc. But we need to have access and a little bit more room to operate in here, if that makes sense. Cheapest way to do that is kind of like what I suggested, and that won't cost that much. So, what do you think about that, gentlemen? We'll look into that, get some prices?
Yeah, I was gonna say, I've never even seen the inside of that room because of that, to that point, we have the space where we put a locked filing cabinet.
Right in this corner here, there's shelving units right on the other side of this wall, but they don't start right at the corner. Right now, in that corner from the wall to where the shelving units start, that's where we keep all of the voting booths and the sign that goes outside for
So
voting.
basically, we go on the spot that all the stuff was taken out today.
Right, and
It's just not
then,
secure.
right, and then that stuff would just be, because right now the machine is out on the floor. If it went in that cabinet, then there's room against the wall where the voting booths, because they're all in boxes, they're, you know, you break them down, hold them up, that could go over on that side.
And what's the recommendation on how many people have access to that?
That's the next slide, number 2.
So can we get, I mean, can we just get measurements and a couple of quotes from whether it's Uline or whoever else on a locked filing cabinet kind of scenario, or figure out $86 for a 3/4 sheet of plywood and a set of hinges? And
Well, yeah.
What's the size of the largest item that would have to go in there?
The
Machine.
floor machine.
And how big are they?
I don't know.
Well,
Waist high, probably that wide, probably like that.
A little longer.
And how many of them are?
Just one.
Just one.
Yeah.
Oh, right, the thing that was over here.
I think the cheapest way to go about that really is this off the wall thing. This is not off the wall. 3/4 inch plywood, that's solid, and padlock it.
Carpenter to build this one?
Well, sure, there's plenty of room, a couple. It's not gonna cost that much. We're not gonna see where we have to get bids, so I just went through that. Well, we're not even gonna touch $2,500.
What do we have left in our election fund? I know that you used up a portion of it
We're
for,
pretty low on it.
like,
I can
40 bucks or a couple hundred,
maybe a couple hundred.
so we can,
That's probably material right there.
right, that was my point.
Right. So
There's no more elections this year, so.
No, hopefully.
I make a motion that we move forward on plywood safe box for the voting machine. Find somebody locally that'll do it. Cost not to exceed $400? $500. Cost not to exceed $500.
And who will be doing that?
Don't know yet.
No, who will be doing the research and finding out who can do it?
Well, I'll do it.
I would make it size-wise bigger than we actually need in case there's future need for space.
And I'll try it, and, okay, so I made that motion. Is there a second? Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
I'll try and find a couple people.
I'm sorry, who seconded that?
I did.
Thank you.
And I'll try to find a couple people and have them be up here on Tuesday when you're here to show them that, what has to fit in there comfortably. Okay? Clear enough? Number 2, discussion of possible action who will have keys to the office, Dropbox, and storage room.
So I reached out to the Wisconsin Towns Association, and they said it is up to each municipality to decide who has keys to the office, the storage room, and the Dropbox. But if you are going to have it more than just the clerk, you have to have it as an agenda item so that your residents know who is going to have the keys, how they will be handled. And so if someone lets someone in that is not supposed to be in there and there's a problem, that's who the residents can go to say, you were only supposed to have it, but you let somebody else have it, and there's an issue now.
I don't think any of us are gonna hand the key to anybody without the key.
Keep the office, town hall yet, so.
You should have a key.
I was given them.
Yeah, all three of you
No, we were a key short.
That was before they got a rekey.
with the new ones.
I would make a motion that we authorize the town clerk / treasurer and the town chairman to have keys to the office, Dropbox, and storage room once the voting machine is secured.
I second that motion.
Okay, is there any further discussion? No further discussion, all in favor? Discussion and possible action to approve extending the ATV/UTV route on Highway 59 to Industrial Boulevard. Very simply put, folks, trying to get to, just like the villages, this is we're trying to get out to Industrial Boulevard. We're trying to get the Restaurant Incorporated and Wilson Sports Center. I've talked to the state supervisor from DOT on this. It can be a done deal. If some of you are familiar, we couldn't go from Mill Road to Zion Road. The village has changed their ordinance. Thanks to Mr. Steve Nass referring me to the proper person. That has been successfully done. So 50% is done. We're trying to make things legal. Zion Road, basically to Connie Wilson's, you couldn't drive on. But people are doing it anyway. That doesn't make it right. People are doing it anyway. So now that will be legal here. It has been passed. The state has approved that. But talking to the state, the guy must have had some fancy global whatever. You can tell with every piece of land that Wilson has and Marion has across from Bonnie's and so on and so forth. Well, you're going to have to work on this with the village because this residence in the village, and this one's in the town, and Wilson's is in the town. So it's going to be kind of a combined effort as far as that goes. What we want to do here,
Where does it go to now?
it ends in Garfield Street. The reason being is the law states you cannot, anything 35 and under in a township or municipality, even if it's a state road, you got jurisdiction over for the ATVs. As soon as you get above 35 miles an hour, the state says it all. So that's 40. They won't drop the speed limit. They tried to do that in the village. To 35 there, but they won't do it. So we've got to try and make this request. I've had phone calls of people that work out there in the industrial park that like to take their ATV to work out there. A couple people have checked with business owners out there. I know State of the Process is fine with it. Not a problem at all. In fact, he said they can drive across his property. Whatever. We'd still have to get to Wilson's lot.
I make a motion that we extend the ATV/UTV route at 59 out to industrial.
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion?
Well, the code, is that related to the ordinance that you have, and I just pulled it out? Because I remembered we had an ordinance, do we need to amend that in any way, because
Okay.
it says all town of Palmyra roads. So we just.
Yeah, but, for example, my road, yeah, sure, it's in the township, but it's a state highway.
Right,
That's what the problem is, it's a state highway.
right. So I didn't know if we needed to change that at all, or just the motion here would cover the extension.
We can make the motion to change it to Industrial Boulevard, except upon the approval of the state of Wisconsin. Because it's gotta be approved by them, and that could be a year from now, folks, I'm telling you, that's how that works.
That already, to Laura's point, that already says all town roads.
It's not a town road, it's a state highway. 59.
Yeah.
But what happens is, correct me if I'm wrong, Josh, when they hit Garfield Street, coming into town, that 59, obviously, it's still a state road. But isn't the village the one that pays for all the maintenance on that?
59, the boundary between the village and the town is split. So